Da, 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 ba, bum. Yay! What's up, everybody? All right, let's go. Happy Wednesday. Happy final Acolyte Day to all of you out there. It's your boy Renee coming to you live here on this Wednesday in this very hot day. It's been a hot couple of weeks, if you don't know. We've been going through a major heat wave here, all culminating to the season finale or series finale of the Acolyte. So I'm sure a lot of us here are waiting and eagerly anticipating the conversation that's going to be happening today. So there's a lot to talk about. This episode was a doozy, was definitely a doozy. Big shout out to Ficon. I'm sorry to hear about your football game. That sounds awful. It sounds like everything that can go wrong went wrong. So first of all, I hope you're recuperating and I hope you're just chilling for the rest of your evening. And hopefully we can have a fun discussion here about the Acolyte and Star Wars and all that. So, again, sorry to hear about the game you had today, but hopefully we could lift your spirits up a bit with our conversation here. And as always, with every stream, just a big reminder that I am now live also on Shorts, vertical format. So depending on your viewing preference, you can watch this here on your traditional horizontal format or vertical formats. Both options are available to you. So choose what you want as you wish, and let's enjoy the stream together as a whole. Also, if you're watching live, don't forget, hit that like button. Would greatly appreciate everyone here who always joins the stream, always appreciates whenever people like the stream, because that means the community is going to grow. Word spreads out, the algorithm gets all happy, and you're feeding the algorithm, and the algorithm's like, yum, 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 yummy, feed me, Seymour. And good stuff happens. So definitely appreciate all of that. Before we talk about things, let's just wait for other people to trickle in and join in, because I know sometimes YouTube's notifications can be a little wonky at times, and sometimes not everyone has a chance to jump in exactly as soon as the stream goes live. But we'll start talking about the main topics in the next couple of days. So we'll in a couple of days, in the next couple of minutes, I meant. So we'll talk about all that stuff. Just stand up and screaming. Before we talk about spoilers and all that stuff, that one particular moment, as I was watching it last night, I also screamed. And if you see my notes, because I have notes, I took down notes, I have that moment highlighted in big bold letters. Let's see, where is it? I wrote so many damn notes watching this episode last night, and I was just losing my mind, because we kept talking about it, we kept speculating about it, and it was just bananas when it finally happened, So yeah, so I have it right here on my notes. When I was like, who's in the cave? Because when you saw the fingers and the hands kind of like, grasping the side of the cave as they're peering out, I was just like, wow, they did it. They did it. And I give them credit for doing it. I give them credit for the series in general for many reasons. And I know there's a good amount of people online that have been hating on this show, who have been hate watching, and have a lot of criticism about this show. Some of the criticism is legit. I will say that. The writing could have been a little bit cleaner, a little bit better. Some of the dialogue felt weak at times, right? But I will give them credit because they swung for the fences on the show. They cherry-picked little things from Legends, and they brought into the forefront stuff that they've been unveiling in current lore, just like the High Republic stuff, which I know a lot of people don't read, and a lot of people, including myself. I'm including myself in this. So there's a lot of stuff that's been, revealed for the first time to a more casual Star Wars fan or Star Wars watcher that is strange. But it's been around in the High Republic lore now, what, since when did they announce the High Republic? 2017 ish or something like that, right? With all the books, the comic books, and all those things. So I give Leslie Headland a lot of credit for taking these things and bringing them to the forefront and really testing the boundaries of what she could do with a beloved franchise, with a beloved sector within the franchise. The Jedi Order and all that, and how it really pushed the limits of, well, what makes these guys work? Are they flawed individuals? They can be flawed just like anybody else. And really, this show, when it was all said and done, and I wrote this down as my final thoughts of the episode, right, was that this show was really more, kind of on the point of view of the Sith, if you really think about it, and we are seeing kind of the rise of, or the resurgence of the Sith, I guess, in this timeline, in this period. And we're seeing a lot of things from their own point of view, or from an outsider's point of view, looking at the Jedi and how they handle their business and all those things, right? And every individual here, Jedi, whatever, they've all had their issues. They were all flawed individuals. And it really tested those boundaries and tested the fandom, to be quite honest, tested the fandom. So I give them a lot of credit for that. And, for me personally, it led to an entertaining show. Are we going to get a season 2? I thought I read somewhere that they were going to do it, but I guess that's still up in the air right now. The one thing I will call out Leslie Headland on is that I do feel that she is kind of bullshitting a little bit, where she said that she created this season to be self-contained, meaning by the end of it, everyone should be satisfied and everyone should be, happy with how things turned out. And if there was no further seasons, then it's all fine and good. I call bullshit on that, because if anything, it left us so many more questions than answers, right? The big reveal that happened in the show, the revelations of certain relationships and knowledge of people in the show, right? And the big crazy ass cameo at the end too, right? So if anything, it left more questions, leaving people who are watching the show wanting them to kind of know more, right? And anticipate more. So in my opinion, I think they knew it all along that they were probably going to continue the series, unless what we saw at the end, at the very, very end, was filmed last minute and was left in there as like a tease to kind of tease us that, oh, there could be more, but we don't know, right? So I give credit, and I criticize also at the same time. What's going on, State Artist? Stian Buckley, what's going on? Hope you're doing well. Thank you for chiming in on the stream here. Hope you're having a good time. If you didn't know already, we are talking about the finale of The Acolyte. Whether it's a season finale or series finale, we don't know. But a lot of stuff happening. And we're not talking spoilers just yet. But we're just talking about overall feeling of the episode so far. So I guess one thing I will say is that with this final episode, there were a lot of things that I actually enjoyed seeing transpire on screen. I said this in a previous episode when I was talking about the first time that, if you didn't know already by now, Kamir was the big, I guess, quote unquote, baddie, the guy who was training May this whole time in the dark side of the Force. And I will say that the first time we saw the saber fights in this series is probably some of the best fighting I've seen in Star Wars, probably since The Phantom Menace, right? The Darth Maul saber fight is always going to be legendary in the Star Wars universe, but the fight of the Jedi in, what was it, episode 3 or 4 or 5 or something like that, was pretty damn good. You know, there's a certain levels of fighting that we never saw in Star Wars before. A nice mix of saber and force usage and all those things. Very good. This episode, when it comes to one-to-one fights, I think is some of the best Jedi fighting we've seen, period, ever displayed on screen. It is stuff that you've seen in video games, stuff that you were able to do, like, you know, playing a character in a video game. We actually saw a lot of that stuff transpire on screen, which was pretty damn awesome, I have to say. So the little kid in me was just like, wow, this is monumental. This is amazing. And I really appreciate it. Plus, I don't know if anyone else felt it, but there was a lot of Empire Strikes Back vibes throughout this episode. And of course, it kind of ended on a bad note, a sour note, just like Empire. But even some camera angles, the usage of some transitions, even the way they kind of choreographed the one-on-one fight in the episode felt very much like the Vader Luke Skywalker fight in Empire Strikes Back. So that was something that I wrote in my notes, that there was a lot of Empire Strikes Back vibes going on in this episode. Overall, I thought the episode was pretty decent. I thought it was strong for what it was and what it had to say. With the reveals, the revelations, the crazy cameo, I do give it 4 out of 5 stars. But as a series as a whole, I would give this a 3 out of 5 stars if I were to use the Letterboxd scale rating there. Yes, I was entertained, but there were some criticisms that I had throughout the season that I've mentioned here on the stream. You know, people will accuse me sometimes of being a shill. No, I criticize. You know, there's some things that I praise and some things that I criticize, you know, very equally. So I think overall it's a 3 out of 5 type of series. I did like it. And I if there were to be a season 2, I would be all for it, because there's a lot of explaining they need to do. A lot of stuff they need to kind of button up and kind of explain. And I think, if anything, the one major downside of this show was that they introduced us to so many characters that we didn't really get to learn a lot about. You know, Saul's character was a very interesting but troubled character. I wish we knew more about his background. Venestra, even though she has a very deep, rich history and lore in the books. What's going on, Scorched You? I saw you chime in and showing up on the stream. I didn't ignore you. I'm just in my flow right now. So, but what's going on? Always happy to see you here. Always happy to see you join in on the stream there. You know, so of course there's more of Venestra that I wish they could have explained to the casual Star Wars audience, instead of, you know, asking us or letting us do more research on our own. Maybe that's the intent. I don't know. Obviously, there's more, you know, the Torben character, the Kelnaka character, the, you know, all the Jedi that they heavily marketed and advertised that were wiped away so soon in the show. I would have loved to know more about their backgrounds, you know. And the one thing that this show did suffer from a little bit is character development. You know, I feel like, for example, Jackie is someone I wish we kind of knew more about, you know, to kind of, if anything, the deaths and the passing of some of these Jedi could have been more impactful if there was more of a connection to them as an audience member. The fact that we didn't get so connected, the deaths ended up becoming more surprises. Like, oh my God, they killed that person. Oh no, they killed that person. And more like, no, why did they have to kill this person and kill that person and all that stuff? You know, so it was a very different reaction. You know, like Yord. Yord is an interesting character that I think would have been nice if we learned more about and we spent more time with, because, you know, the way they took him out was just so quick and kind of almost felt like it was an afterthought sometimes, or just something they did in passing. You know, so it was just, it's a little unfortunate that we didn't get more of that character development. Obviously, Osha and May were the ones that were kind of developed the most. Saul to a certain extent, but I think there could have been more about Saul that we could have learned more about. And Khmer, right? Or Khmer, however you want to pronounce it. It would have been nice to kind of learn more about the background. And who knows? If we do get a season 2, then there's an opportunity to explore more about these characters there. So yeah. So just as a series as a whole, those are some of my criticisms. What I think they did right and what I thought they did very well and that I enjoyed was, bring stuff back from the Legends lore, expanding a little bit more about the High Republic times and all that, especially for a casual person like myself who don't have the time to read all the stuff. It's nice that they were able to introduce a lot of those things. The whole thing about the Cortosis metal and more of a way to look at the Force outside of what the Jedi are trying to spread and teach. Revealing and kind of, I guess, solidifying stuff that we've already seen in the prequels, that the Jedi, they are a flawed organization, and there was this great line in this one episode that I'll get to in a little bit, where they were having conversations with the Senate, and it kind of defined everything that we were speculating as this season was going on, right? And it's all about the criticisms of the Jedi. And I guess in a way, Leslie kind of did this as like a stick it to the man or down with major organizations and all those things like that, which could be true if you want to look into in between the lines there and everything. But I think overall, it was just very interesting to kind of display in front of everybody that the Jedi are not the perfect organization, right? And there are pluses and minuses, just like with anything, right? There's no one particular group or community or individual that is perfect, right? There's always going to be a challenge or a flaw, and it's all about how they carry on with all those things. So it's just very interesting how this series did a lot of that, right? So yeah, so I thought the series was enjoyable as a whole. Even though I gave it a 3 out of 5, that doesn't mean I hated it. If we were going off of a Rotten Tomatoes score, my 3 out of 5 would equate 100% fresh, believe it or not. So yeah, so I'm curious to hear from all of you. No major spoilers just yet, but what did you feel overall about the Acolyte and all that? I forgot to put this up there so that everyone knows what we're talking about. What did you think of the episode? And what do you think about the series as a whole? And if a season 2 is something that you're looking forward to? Faikon, you got that novel today after you watched the show? I don't blame you. I've never read that book, but I think now is a perfect time to read that book right now. Scorched, what was your rating for the finale again? So the finale episode rating in itself was 4 out of 5 stars. The series as a whole is a 3 out of 5. There were a lot of episodes that I felt fell in the 3 out of 5 range for me. And I've listed out my criticisms. I've listed out my positives and some negative stuff. But I think, than Obi-Wan, a lot stronger than Boba Fett, and maybe slightly stronger than Ahsoka, in my opinion. So, what's going on, Jester? How you doing? Always a pleasure seeing you here. Hope you're doing well. Like, the only bad thing is that it's written in English. Would rather have it translated to Swedish. For these shows, I do wonder what they go through for the foreign markets, are you talking about the book or the show? If you're talking about the book, I'm surprised by this point they haven't had that type of translation yet. For the series, I do think when they put it out, it's like available in multiple languages already, or I could be wrong. I don't know. I never really looked into it. Yeah, the book. Yeah, I'm surprised at this point that that hasn't been done yet. That book has been out for a very long time, unless they don't care. I don't know. Or maybe at one point when Disney got the rights and everything, they probably thought it wasn't worth the time. The series you do watch in English. Was anyone surprised about some of the revelations that they saw in this episode? I think I was surprised, but at the same time, I was also expecting it because I think some of the things that we saw, we've been speculating for a while now. Oh, they only have that in German and English? Oh, that's interesting. I'm surprised. I thought that would be translated more thoroughly. Especially it's Star Wars. You would think that they would have more languages available for a book like that. So I do find that quite surprising, to be honest. Scorch, what was your thoughts on the finale here? I'm assuming you had a chance to see it. Jester, what about you? Did you have a chance to watch the episode yet? Oh, you haven't, Scorch, you never watched a single episode? Okay. That's interesting. Do you have any interest or you're just like, whatever? Yeah, with the whole OSHA thing, again, we won't talk spoilers just yet. We'll talk about spoilers in a little bit. But yeah, that whole thing that happened, um, I think at one point I predicted that there was going to be a switch. You know, I think I talked about it either last stream or the stream before that I do feel like there is going to be a switch happening. So, to be honest with you, and this didn't happen in the episode, so don't worry if you think I'm going to spoil anything. But I thought at one point that the only way you could resolve it all is if they both died, if they both kind of took him out, in a way, right? But that didn't happen. What's going on, Nikhil? All right, you don't have to keep spamming hello and hi and all that. I see you. Oh, you predicted that after episode 6? Episode 6. Yeah, I think around that time that's when I was kind of thinking like there had to be some sort of switch upcoming. Some sort of change, right? Something that is like against the grain. If like on overall, do you feel like majority of this series was predictable or were you still surprised by some of the things that they showed you? Nikhil, you have to understand too that streams and people who stream, there is a delay. So all you have to do is just say hi once. You don't have to spam that over and over again. Oh, you thought the finale was very predictable? And you felt that most of the series was predictable too? I mean, I do feel like, there was a lot of moments in this show where they kind of handed things to you and left it to you to kind of determine what's going to happen, right? It all depends on how insightful you are while watching the show, and honestly, like how much you're paying attention to, right? So, I think if you paid a lot of attention while you were watching, then you could easily guess a lot of things that might happen. So I could see that, you know. Scorcha, he pulled a Mad Max. Yeah, the Venestra thing, I think we kind of knew already. If I'm thinking what you're thinking about, I think we kind of already knew. Um, you know, when we saw something earlier in the show that kind of hinted in on it, right? So, yeah. That was like the one revelation that was not so much of a surprise, but at the same time, I'm glad at least they acknowledged it, you know? Any Marvel movie upgrade in my country. What do you mean by Marvel movie upgrade, Nikhil? What my upgrades? What does that even mean? I think Scorch is having a little bit too much fun here in the chat. You're asking if I play background music? I don't understand what all that is. Like Moon Knight or Aquaman 3. Well, Moon Knight again, if we're talking about, well, we're talking about Star Wars here, but if you want to talk Marvel real quick, Moon Knight, I don't even know if we're going to get a season 2. And Aquaman 3, you could forget about that. That's not going to happen. PUBG on Android is BGMI. Oh, see, I didn't know that. That's interesting. Look at that. I'm learning something new all the time. By the way, I don't play any games on mobile. I don't have the time. And if I'm gonna play any kind of game, I'd rather play it on PC or console. All right. I think we have enough people here. So let's talk about let's get more into the thick of things here. Let's I'm gonna put on the spoiler tag and let's really get into the nitty-gritty of this episode and this finale. Was your Moon Knight upgrade again? What do you mean by upgrade? Honestly, I honestly don't know what you're referring to. I appreciate the suggestion for watching trailers. I've had so many people asking me to watch movies and trailers and all those things. You know, I watch and I do things that I'm into myself. If there's a big enough demand, then I will do it. Or you could just donate and pay for me to do it then. or become a member and suggest it. But I appreciate the suggestions and all that. I do know the movie you're referring to. I do know the movie you're referring to. But honestly, I've heard from people that the movie's not that good. If the Kalki movie, that's the science fiction movie, right? I've heard mixed things about it. So I don't know if I would be very much interested in watching it. All right, let's get back on topic here. So let's talk about Star Wars here. Let's talk about the Acolyte season finale. All right. So I'm going to be doing my little recap here. Again, I'm going through all my notes that I took watching this show. I took a lot of notes, a lot of things to take away from, a lot of things I noticed. So, as I'm going through all of these, I'm more than happy for anyone to chime in and ask questions and all that stuff. So, the episode itself was 49 minutes, right? What I found interesting was that when it debuted on the platform, there was no special thumbnail and no episode title at all. So they were keeping it kind of like mystery, kind of like secret. If you go there now, they finally updated the thumbnail, and the episode title of this final episode is The Acolyte. So very much similar to the title of the show. I love how the episode started with her breathing. So she's still in the helmet in that moment, right? And all of a sudden you see her struggling, and I don't know if that's the dark side taking over, if she's being overwhelmed. I loved how Chimere had that moment of concern. And even though that Cortosis helmet would not allow for him to read her mind and really see what's going on, he was very much trying to at least have her calm down. So you notice that he kind of went into the Force, very much like Anastasia did when she was mind controlling Torben, right? So I loved how he kind of went into that plane of existence and was really trying to calm her down and all that. So it looked very, very cool how all that transpired and everything. Let's see. And that we continued on, and another thing that I found interesting there was when Chimere and when Osha finally took the helmet off, right? She was having a conversation with him and said that she saw this vision, right? And she said, I saw the future, and I basically saw May killing Saul, and there was a conversation back and forth, and saying, oh, that's the future, but the future is not solidified, meaning she still has that feeling like you could change things around, right? But Chimere kind of had this look on his face as if he's like, maybe he knows a little bit something more that he's not willing to mention to her just yet. So he kind of left it to her own devices to kind of figure things out on her own and see what action she was going to take moving forward. And that action was basically like, I'm going to go and try to save my sister from doing something stupid, right? And, basically that was his cue to say, oh, so you know where she is. Well, guess what? I'm not going to tell you where she is. So here's the solution. Let's go together. And let's go and let's see, once we get there, who can get to her first, right? So I thought that was kind of like a really funny thing to do amongst the two there. So we get that moment. Nikhil, I'm in the U.S., New York in particular. Then we get to go back to Saul. Saul is now with May on the ship. May is all tied up, right? And Saul is, starting to talk to her more. He's still all in about the divergence that's happening on that planet. And his main purpose right now seems to be like he wants the proof to show to the Jedi Council that the divergence exists, right? And that's like his big thing right now. And they did something that I found annoying that they did already before, and they did it again now, is that the minute he's about to reveal something big or mention something huge, he gets interrupted. We saw that in a previous episode, and now he did it here. And when he was about to say something about May and Osha to May, that's when she broke out of her shackles and kind of stunned him with a little pip droid there. So I was like, all right, that's a whole thing that's happening that was very, very much annoying. All right, Nikhil, you have just earned yourself a ban because it looks like you don't care and all you want to do is promote your stuff. So everyone say goodbye to Nikhil. There we go. First ban of the day. It was bound to happen. But yeah, you want a quick way to get yourself banned from the channel is to unwillingly and unasked to promote and market your stuff there. So really good job. So yeah, so I thought that was, again, that was something that really annoyed me. So May finds a way to get off the ship. She finds like kind of this other ship that she gonna escape in, and which led to this crazy chase scene in space. And I thought this whole scene and this whole moment was very awesome. This was very cool. It felt very Star Wars, honestly, with Saul chasing May, ship to ship chasing, going through kind of like the asteroid belt. It was like a rings of a planet, right? So it also felt very much like the sequels. I felt like we got a similar chase scene. It wasn't so much Force Awakens, but we saw some of that in Force Awakens, but it felt more like The Last Jedi, when you had Chewbacca in the Millennium Falcon, chasing, flying around, I believe it was like under the planet, and he had the porgs with him and everything. So I thought this whole moment was very cool and very well done. I love that there were different camera angles on how the ship was being handled and all. It felt real. And the first thing that popped into my mind was, if this is something that we could see from the Patty Jenkins proposed Rebel Assault or Rebel, kind of like Top Gun in space show that she wants to do, or movie, then I'm all in, because a lot of that stuff looks pretty damn awesome. And I think that's going to be really cool if we could see more of that stuff. Now we go back to Coruscant with Venestra meeting up with one of the main members of the Senate. And you can tell, like, with this brief exchange that they had, that there's a major conflict between the Jedi Order and the Senate at this moment. And it looks like the Senate, they're kind of looking down on the Jedi Order at the moment. And there's a proposed investigation into the Jedi Order, which I thought was very interesting. It kind of shows you that there's like a rift between the two sides. And there was this amazing speech that the guy, I forget who the character name of the Senate is, the guy representing the Senate. If anyone can remind me in the chat, that would be awesome. But his speech kind of, and this is what I was alluding to earlier, kind of, I guess, put it in terms, everything that we've been thinking about the Jedi throughout the show, right? And he called them organization with unchecked power, a massive system of unchecked power, posing as a religion, delusional cult, claims to control the uncontrollable. And I was like, man, what a way to summarize everything that we've been kind of thinking about the Jedi throughout the show, right? And you can kind of see that this is how the Senate, or maybe a good amount of people, are looking at the Jedi at this point. So it was very interesting to see that. Also, he said something that along the lines of, what if one of you, not what is it? What if, not what if, or when one of you snaps, who will be strong enough to stop him? And then notice that he says him and not them, right? So I thought in a way this was like a big foreshadowing of what is to come with Anakin later on down the line. So I thought that was really interesting, that exchange that this guy had with Venestra there. And you could tell Venestra was getting upset. You could tell that she really didn't appreciate a lot of things that he was saying. But at the same time, I think because of her facial reactions, you could kind of see that maybe she is starting to think like, okay, this could be a concern, so maybe we should start paying more attention to this stuff. But I think overall, there is something that happened to this character that made her the way she is. And very much like what I said before about the entire series, I really wish we had more time to dive into each of these characters, because something has happened to her from the books to now that made her the way she is. And I would love to know what that is, because I feel like in a way she is very not delusioned, but I feel like there are some things that maybe she no longer believes in, or she questions about her own order. And why, why maybe that, she decides to keep so many secrets from everybody on what's happening. So I found all of that stuff very interesting. So we go back to the planet where Chimera and Osha are. They're heading to the ship to race to see who gets to May first, right? And right before they hit the ship, Chimera goes to Osha and says, "Hey, one last chance. Are you sure you wouldn't want me to train you?" And without hesitation, she's like, "No, I don't want you to train me." And he made a reference saying, "Oh, that's interesting. May made that deal without even thinking about it." So it's kind of an interesting dynamic between the two and how they were handling, I guess, their sides of the Force, because it is very much a yin yang situation where since they are one person born as two, they definitely share both sides of the Force. One is a little bit more light side, one is more dark side. But as we've seen in this episode, that can easily shift, right? So I found that there's definitely like a scaling balance there. And then we get the big moment. The moment that Ficon and his friends lost their minds over. I verbally screamed out loud last night as I was watching the show alone here in my place. And then, because we see as the ship is flying off into space, a hand coming out from the cave, from the little hideout the Chimera built for himself. And boom, they cut to the big reveal of Plagueis. So yes, the speculations can be done with. All of the stuff that we've been talking about, we've been hinting at, that we've been hoping to see. We finally got the reveal of Plagueis in this episode, and in, I guess, live action canon, on screen for the very first time. And it looked pretty damn awesome. Looked pretty damn awesome. Now, I know there's a lot of conversation happening online right now about, well, how old does this make Plagueis? Where does Plagueis fall into all of this in the timeline? What about Plagueis' own master and mentor and blah, blah, blah? I don't care. I honestly don't care. I love the fact that we just got the reveal. I love that we just got him showing up. Whatever they decide to do afterwards, I'm just going to wait for it, because obviously they're going to tell their story. They're going to tell their way of the introduction of Plagueis in this whole universe. And it's going to be fascinating. It's going to be fascinating to see what they're going to do and how they're going to explain it all. But that's all we got. We didn't hear him speak. He didn't really interact with anybody. He was just peering away from the cave like that, watching them, maybe hoping that Chimera can bring both of them back, right? Because if for those of you who don't know, in lore, legacy lore, I don't know if this is part of current canon or whatever, but now it doesn't seem to matter because they're cherry picking and all that. What's going on, Arnold? Always a pleasure to see you here. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a good day today. And I hope you're resting up. Plagueis worked very closely with Palpatine in trying to find ways to create a vergence in the Force. And most importantly, create a dyad where they could create life from the Force and eventually know how to prolong life and all of those things, right? And I think because of the creation of May and Osha, I think that intrigued Plagueis more, and he wants to, I guess, study them more so. So there has to be, depending on where in the timeline this all falls in, you would assume that Palpatine has to be somewhere, right? Because eventually Palpatine and Plagueis work together. So, and if this is going to be kind of the beginning of the second phase or third phase of the Sith within this whole universe, then something major is going to be happening, right? So I don't know, again, where we're going to go from here. But bottom line, we finally got Plagueis. Everyone can close their mouths, can stop speculating and all those things. I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see where we go from here. But we got Plagueis. We finally got Plagueis. So there you go. Arnold, I saw the new episode. Sorry, but I don't know how to explain, but it was only 3 out of 5 for me. That's fine. Look, some people would enjoy this episode. Some people won't, you know. And right now, we're here to vent about it all. Whether you liked some things or you didn't like some things, this is the place just to talk about it, right? So, and I'm just recapping everything, and whatever you guys want to chime in on, chime in on. I'm just going through my little notes here. So, but I'm sorry to hear that your day was bullshit, man. I hope nothing too crazy, but at the same time, I hope you can relax and I hope you can enjoy just hanging out here with all of us. Faikon said he watched this one particular scene 100 times already. Still gives me chills. Also, I don't think Palpatine is born yet, he said. Could be. I don't know. Could be. But here's the reason why I kind of mention him. Because there's something that happens later on in the episode that I'm like, wait a minute. This sounds interesting to me. What's going on, Noob? Okay, I don't know if that message was meant for me or if that was meant for maybe a previous stream that you were watching, but thanks for your comment. All right, moving forward. And this is what I'm referring to here. Because after we get that reveal, we go back to Coruscant, right? And we see Vanestra talking to someone on the comms. And I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Or didn't that voice on the comms sound eerily familiar? Didn't it sound like, in a way, could this be Sidious? Could that be Palpatine? It sounded very Palpatine-like to me on the comms. Is it just me? Who was she talking to? Because it wasn't revealed at all in this episode who she was talking to on the comms, right? It's not Saul, right? And it's no one else within the console, at least that we know of. But man, that voice sounded very familiar to me. And again, I'm not familiar with the High Republic lore. I don't know where Palpatine / Sidious is. Remember, it was hinted in Rise of Skywalker that Palpatine that we know of in the original trilogy could have been a clone because they had the way to clone these people for a while now. That's why we got who's that? The guy in the the guy that we saw in the sequels, right? He was a clone. The Palpatine that we saw that pop up, which was kind of brought back from the Force, he mentions about cloning and all that. So it is quite possible that maybe the person that Vanestra is talking to on the comms is the original Sidious, the original Palpatine, and maybe eventually later on down the line, he works with Plagueis to find a way to clone themselves and clone other people. You know, maybe with the help of May, or I'm sorry. We're going to get to that. Maybe with the help of the girl, maybe with the help of Khmer. We don't know, right? So I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting thing to kind of throw out there and not have any explanation whatsoever about it all. But it sure sounded familiar to me, you know, and that's all I'll say. By the way, if you're watching live, don't forget, hit that like button. All of us here would greatly appreciate it. Plus, both Faikon and Arnold had a very bad day today. So all we would ask is that everyone can say, hey guys, what's up? Hope you have a great evening, and hit that like button because everyone will be very happy. Arnold, I'm sorry that you're feeling that way with your job. I really hope it gets better for you, but let's just relax and let's just enjoy this time here and not think about it too much. Do I know what minute it was that Vanestra talked to? If you go back to the Plagueis cave reveal, it happens shortly after that. I think I didn't write time codes here, so but I remember it happened like very soon after that moment. You know, but again, this was just something that I noticed here. All right, so Next we go. Let's see. All right. So now we finally get the moment where Saul goes back to the planet because he was chasing May as she was returning to the planet as well. And Saul, we're back at that base with the Coven of Witches are, and you can tell that he feels very uncomfortable being there. Maybe it's because of the memories of what happened. You know, there's a lot of things. There was one thing that was introduced in the series, and that was the Force echoes. We've seen this in the video games like Jedi Survivor and and Jedi Fallen Order, where the Force can leave echoes of events that happened, kind of like in certain areas, and that's how people like Saul, how people like Vanessa can kind of figure out exactly what happened in that moment, because big things are trapped in Force time. So, see, Ficon just re-listened to that moment in the show that I'm talking about before, and he says it sounds exactly like Palpatine. Am I wrong? Am I losing my mind? I really think, honestly, I think this could be a little hint that maybe, maybe we're getting a tease that this could be either the Palpatine, the original, or this is the same person that we saw show up in the prequels, so on and so forth, right? So I don't know. It'll be really, really interesting to see. Arnold said he had to stop 3 times in the scene with Plagueis. I don't blame you. Now, Arnold, let me ask you a question. When you saw that scene happening, did you know immediately who that was, or did you have to kind of guess and maybe do research afterwards? I'm very curious. I wonder how it impacted you when you saw it. Ficon, I think it's still 100 years before Phantom Menace. I don't think we're that close, but I will say that this could mean something. If this is what we're speculating, this could mean something. What's going on, Clone Wars for Life? Nice to see you back here. We are obviously talking about the Acolyte. We're talking about the season or series finale. We don't know if we're going to get another season here. I hope we do. But a lot of reveals, a lot of revelations, and a crazy-ass cameo. Arnold say he knew it was Plagueis the whole time when he saw the reveal, so that's awesome. I'm glad that you felt that way. I think all of us collectively lost our ever-loving minds when we saw that reveal happening. So, Clone Wars, I know this series isn't for you, but did you watch the episode last night? Let us know. So we're back in Brendok, and Saul, especially when he gets to the point where the 2 sisters were separated, and he felt a strong presence, that he felt like something was haunting him, so he had to get out of there. And then lo and behold, it's funny, May just popped up, and kind of did her thing and all that. So that was something that was very, very interesting. And then this is where we get the big fights. Chimere has the one-on-one battle with Saul, and May and Osha kind of have their kind of confrontation there. So I wrote down in my notes right here as the fight was happening, and I had to stop and pause multiple times. This is probably one of the best one-to-one saber fights I've seen. It felt very wuxia style fighting, from the old kung fu movie days and all that. It was just brilliantly choreographed. Honestly, call me nuts, call me crazy, call me a fanboy, or whatever the case is. This is probably one of the best one-to-one battles, saber fights I've ever seen. In the Star Wars history, there are many one-to-one fights that I can always recall. In Empire Strikes Back, I think the Luke and Vader saber fight was very, very well done. Very telling too, as it was telling a story as the fight was happening in real time. This reminded me very much of that battle. And it was just amazing. And there were a lot of things happening. There was a lot of jumping around, but not like Yoda jumping, more like, getting out of here and defending here and doing things like that, using the Force to your advantage. Very, very awesome stuff. And it was really, really cool. There was this one moment, oh my God, when Chimere, you know how he has this, he could separate his sabers, right? So he has like a dagger saber and a regular sword saber. And he done things again, like I said, we've seen in video games where he threw both of them out and kind of using the force to kind of guide them to try to hit Saul. And Saul uses this crazy force cyclone to kind of, spread them out and block, kind of like a shield, and block them, and almost hitting Chimera in the process during the whole thing in this one swooping move. Very brilliant stuff. And like I said, very martial artsy, very wuxia style. I was loving every minute of this fight scene. It was so good, so good. And at the same time, in parallel, we also had the confrontation between May and Osha, right? Let me get back to the chats real quick. Clone Wars saying, thoughts on making a show about Darth Raven? I think making a show about Darth Raven is more possible now based on what was revealed in this episode. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's something they would consider. I think personally it would be awesome to see a show with Darth Raven. I think this show and this series proves that the point of view from the other side is something that really works well. So I think it's really, I think this is something they should consider moving forward with. Also, thanks for showing Matt the other day. Of course, I thought that was pretty awesome. I thought that was a lot of fun to watch. Arnold, but for me, the most important scene was the moment when the lightsaber turned red. I'm going to get to that because that was also very awesome. Do we think we'll see a fight between him and someone we'll talk about in a little bit? Maybe. I also love the fact, Arnold, that you asked in a previous stream, would we ever see this person? And I said, I don't think so. But I think in a way you kind of had a feeling we might. And I love how that kind of turned out the way it did. Ficon, I know this is only legends, but Plagueis and Kid Adimundi would not be born. But like I said, their age is only legends. And this is what makes me think that we are way closer than 100 years. It's possible. Very, very possible. So again, they have so many things they can do moving forward from this season or from this show. And I think at this point, I think it's kind of safe to say now that legends can now be almost considered a possibility as far as what is to be included in the current canon, because they are being very like kind of picky, but they're handpicking stuff, right? So who knows? And they could be recreating the Legends lore and making it work with whatever they're working with right now. But look, regardless of what people think of this series, I think it's exciting for Star Wars, because I feel like there's a lot of possibilities that could come from this. And if more creators are willing to be more daring and ballsy to do what they think they can do, I think this only means good things to Star Wars, in my opinion, right? I don't know. I'm curious what you all think. Kevin Davis, what's going on, Kevin? Always a pleasure to see you. Kathleen Kennedy have final say in every project Lucasfilm put out, television and movies. Currently, that is true. Yes, that is true. By the way, to get myself pumped and ready for Twisters this week, I rewatched the original Twister movie last night. One of my all-time, I guess, guilty pleasure movies. It's a great movie. I dare say it may even be one of the best disaster films ever made in the modern era. Kathleen Kennedy was also producer on that, because I think she is just tied to, well, at one point she was tied with Amblin, which is Steven Spielberg, but now she's also very tied to Lucasfilm, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon, to be honest with you. So yeah. So Ficon said, I love the fight between Saul and Chimera, but the slow motion scene looked very fake in my opinion. The slow motion scene, are you referring to that scene I just talked about? With the deflection. Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. When they were on the bridge and they kind of leapt from the bridge onto the ground level. If you're talking about that, I know exactly what you mean, because Saul looked a little bit digitized during that moment. So if that's the moment you're thinking about, then I do agree with that. Arnold, what if the clones could only arise because of the two girls? I think that could be something, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why Plagueis may be very heavily invested in getting the two girls, acquiring the two girls. And I think that's one of the things that could lead into the potential learning on how to be cloning themselves and whatever the case is, preserving life, which is something that in Legends, Plagueis and Palpatine were very much into. So you could be onto something there. All right. So yeah, so that fight scene was awesome. Also, when May and Osha first have their confrontation, I love the dynamic there. You have May, who was always working more on the darker side, wearing clothes that are more light, and you have Osha, who was always working more on the light side, wearing dark. So in a way, I felt like this was a foreshadowing of what's to come moving forward in this episode. Osha's she had this amazing speech, or maybe I forgot who said it, but during before they start fighting, it was revealed that Osha's hatred of May and grief over her mom hurt her from becoming a Jedi and realizing herself as being a Jedi. So that's why she thinks she's failed the whole time. But May corrected her and said, no, 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 no. Saul's responsible for all those things you just mentioned. And it's because of that, you didn't fail, he failed you. And I thought that was a great exchange there between the two. And that's what led to the hand-to-hand combat, the fight between the two sisters. And one thing I will say is both are portrayed by Amanda Stenberg, right? I didn't notice at one particular moment during this fight between them two any digitization of the faces. I thought it felt very seamless, and it looked pretty damn cool the way they were handling it. You know, knowing that this is one actress portraying both sides. Now, of course, there has to be some sort of CG work. There had to be some sort of like maybe deep fake happening there, because you can't have obviously two girls, two of the same actress fighting each other. But the way that they masked it, the way that they covered it, the way that they choreographed it, I thought was pretty damn awesome, that I was really all into it. I also love how their fight transitioned well to going back to the Khmer and Saul fight. I really loved how that kind of really transition there. It felt very much parallel to what was happening on the other side there. Arnold saying Plagueis looked like a Dementor from Harry Potter. Sure did. Definitely did. Then they kind of separate as they're fighting there, and May leaves to fight Saul, right? Because she notices that, or she feels that Saul is fighting Khmer at this moment, right? And the minute she shows up, you know, she's always constantly being taught by Khmer. And Khmer was like, hey, whatchamacallit, now's your chance, right? Now's your chance to complete your training or whatever the case is. And now is your time to end Saul. But she refuses. May completely refuses at this point because she wants Saul to face the justice for what has happened and what he did to her mom, to the planet, to their coven, right? And this is the moment where Saul finally reveals all the truths, right? He admits to that he was the one that unfortunately killed the mom. And he also reveals that the reason why there's so much invested interest in the two girls is because they are birthed from the Force, and they're part of the whole Virgins that they've been, kind of investigating and all of these things, right? So while he's finally divulging all the truth and honesty and all of this stuff is pouring out of him, Osha is in the background hearing all of this for the first time. She picked up the lightsaber that was broken that belonged to Saul. And I loved how they did this too. When the saber broke on the ground, you could kind of see the inner workings of the saber. And, they don't really show this enough, but they show how the kyber crystal sits in its place. We also saw this and what happened when Kymer's own saber got busted, right? So I love how they kind of show that. And, as Osha's hearing all of this stuff, she slowly picks up Saul's lightsaber, right? And as they, as she's hearing all this for the first time, and she's like saying to Saul, is this really true? Like, you could tell, like, her emotions are getting the best of her. And the minute they started showing the saber inside and the crystal turning red, I was like, oh, wow. We've never seen this portrayed on screen before, right? We've only heard this in the books, or we heard like how the kyber crystal can change when someone moves from the light to dark side, right? Am I correct in assuming that? Because I felt like that was always the case. I never really thought that people would go out and seek after a red crystal, right? This was always something that kind of organically transformed if you based off of the person that's holding that crystal or that saber, right? But I love how they kind of showed all of that happening. It was amazing the way they all showed that. Clone Wars, Plagueis is in it now. Now I'm actually interested in watching. Yeah, they did it. They finally gave what the fans were hoping for, and he showed up. He showed up. Keith Davis said the Acolyte season finale, they did stick the landing. I thought they did a decent job. I really did. But my only complaint is that, and I mentioned this before, Leslie said that she made this series, or at least this season, self-containing, so that when it ends and there's no second season, then everything is fine. But I call bullshit on that, because we're left with so many more questions, more so than ever when this episode ended. So we'll see what happens. But I gave this episode a 4 out of 5 stars. And I thought they did a good job. Arnold saying, I think that they switched too much scene to scene. What the fuck moment? Oh, so you think you would have preferred if they had the whole Plagueis reveal at the very end instead of kind of in the middle? I think you could definitely have, you would have ended up getting a different effect overall, I think, for sure. I feel like the ending that we got now honestly felt a little bit more fan service. It felt like this was more of like a nod to the fans, you know, like one of the big criticisms I've always had with Star Wars is that they always have to find a way to connect people or things that we are so familiar with within the universe to everything. What was the biggest connection before? It was the droids, right? R2-D2 had to be everywhere. C-3PO, in a way, had to be everywhere, right? And that was getting very annoying after a while. And now there are other characters that now seem to have to be connected to this and connected to that. And if done correctly, and if it makes sense in the story, then that's fine. But if you're just forcing it in there to just be like, hey guys, remember this guy? You know, hey everybody, this is a fan favorite. It's a little bit shallow, you know. And but if there's a meaning behind this all, then I'm all for it. I just need to know what that is, right? Kevin Davis, D23 Expo prediction trailers: Snow White, Skeleton Crew, Pixar, win or lose. Tiana, Daredevil Born Again cast come out on stage. I think we're going to see the Daredevil cast on stage next week at Comic-Con, because Marvel is having 2 presentations at San Diego Comic-Con next week. And I think this is their moment that they need to start revealing things and making the fan base get excited again. So I personally think Daredevil, we're going to see the cast of Daredevil next week at Comic-Con. I don't know when Comic-Con starts, but in one of the streams next week, we'll talk about expectations and what to do. All right, so when we see the Kyber Crystal turning, this is the moment we know Osha is turning to the dark side. So I love, again, we're getting a switch between the sisters. May is acting more logically and more light side, and Osha, because of all of her emotions that she could never keep in check, she's finally turning, and her anger is seeping through because she was being lied to. She wasn't being told the truth. And the truth is, unfortunately, everything that happened to her family and to her childhood and all that. So, you know, as Saul is begging for forgiveness and apologizing, he starts choking. And you knew it right there and there who was doing it to him. And it was Osha. Osha was force choking Saul. And And it kind of brings you back to Osha's kind of her vision that she saw when she was in the helmet. And it wasn't May who ended up killing Saul. It was actually herself ended up killing Saul. And I think Chimere knew that. I think he knew that. And I think that's when he didn't really say anything because he wanted things to play out the way it was going to play out. And it was a very sad moment and very tragic moment when Saul was dying. And as he was being choked, he basically looked at Osha and say, you know what? It's okay. This is his penance, right? He knows he's responsible for all these bad things and he's accepting his fate. And pretty much gave the green light. And Osha's like, all right, boom, you're dead and all that. So I thought that was really cool. And then another cool thing, as if everything that we saw wasn't cool enough, she ignites her saber that, mind you, the crystal is in mid-transition because Chimere is trying to like console her, right? But she's still trying to figure out where the hell she is. And in real time, we saw the saber turn from blue to red. And we saw this transition of blue turning into red. And I thought this was like one of the coolest effects that we saw. And again, we've never seen this transition happening before in Star Wars. And I thought that was a very awesome thing to do. I saw a lot of discourse about that online. And apparently this was something that was already revealed in current canon, many years ago, I guess within the books or the comics and all that. I saw someone mentioning that this was introduced back in 2017. So again, for the casual Star Wars audience, this is the first time we're ever seeing this. And me personally, I thought it was damn cool. So going back, Arnold, Madam Web is on Netflix now. I think I have to quit the Abu. I will say this. I think Madam Web is a fun, bad movie night watch. If you just want to have a night, maybe gather some friends together and just watch something terrible so that you can all laugh at it, Madam Web is a good candidate for that. Keith Davis, I was surprised Tom Hiddleston didn't get Emmy nominations for Loki this morning. I'm not. I feel like the Marvel stuff is being ignored right now, with the Emmy nominations and all that. Kevin Davis, Shogun going to win Best Drama. It looks like that's going to be the case. The Bear going to win Best Comedy. I won't be surprised if that happens. I will say major snub on The Curse, the Emma Stone, Safdie show that was on Showtime. I think that should have been considered for the drama nominations. I think that was a big snub. A lot to talk about during Emmy nominations. I don't have the time to talk about it today, but a lot of interesting reveals there for sure. It's one of the first times too that HBO didn't lead in nominations overall too, right? I think that went to Netflix, and in second place it was FX, right? So very, very interesting stuff to see there. So Kevin, I'm glad that you are staying on top of all that and letting us know about your predictions moving forward. So Venestra finally lands on the planet, right? And they're all looking for everyone there. And she gets a quick sense, right? And she notices Chimere, basically. She's like, oh, you're alive? She kind of mentions. And he notices that. It's like, uh-oh, I'm not wearing the helmet. So, of course, she could read my mind. Puts the helmet on and all that. And that is the moment we kind of understood, okay, there's a connection between the two. We already saw Chimere with the scars on his back. We know the kind of saber that Venestra has. It looks very much like a whip. So she has to have been his master, right? And that gets revealed even more so later on in the episode. But yeah, so she's like, I know where they are. Follow me. So they're going to go follow up with them. And then, let's see. After much back and forth between Osha and Chimere, Osha agrees finally to have Chimere train her under one condition: leave her sister alone. So we knew that now the sisters are going to be separated, and the way they did that is that Chimere offered to mind wipe the sister knowledge of not only Osha, but of Chimera as well. So as you're as they're saying the sisters are having their final goodbyes and they're hugging each other, there was a brief moment I was expecting that maybe Osha was going to kill her. I said, let's make this easier. I don't want her to suffer anymore. I thought she was going to kill her and maybe take herself out. I don't know why I thought that, but it felt really strangely like maybe this was going to be the thing that's going to happen here. But no, they're just hugging, crying it out. And as they're doing that, they're trying to recite the same thing that they recite to each other. And Chimera like mind wipes her. And you could tell that she's starting to forget. And that at least puts ease in Osha's mind that, okay, maybe she's not going to be haunted by all of these things that happen and they could move on, right? Venestra sees Sol on the ground, and, she feels very sad about, everything. It kind of brings up the whole question of that, were they really close? And then we get to see, and then plus there was a very weird back and forth where you see Chimera hanging out in the back, looking down on the ground. I'm sure seeing this person that he hasn't seen in a long time. And because of the helmet, she doesn't really sense him immediately. But the minute she turns, of course, he's not going to be there anymore, right? So I thought that was a very interesting thing, very typical of a thing to do there. Real quick, Keith Davis. Sorry, not Keith Davis. Keith Davis, isn't that the actor who also does a lot of voice acting? Kevin Davis, do you think they going to announce the possible season 2 of the Acolyte at D23 Expo or wait until Star Wars Celebration in Japan next year? Honestly, I think it would be in their better interest to announce it at Celebration next year, which I will be at. I am going to Celebration in Japan next year. I already have my tickets and all that, so I'm excited for that. And if they do announce it there, I think that would be a lot of fun and exciting. They need some stuff to announce. They need something to give to that fan base, right? Let this current season die down for the rest of the year. They could announce it at D23 if they wanted to, but I think announcing it at Celebration in Japan next year would be huge, in my opinion, because they need some things to reveal, right? And I'm sure they're going to talk about a lot of their movie projects that they're probably going to do. I think it would be amazing if all of a sudden they announce that in Celebration next year. So we finally are back in Coruscant, and Venestra is now talking to the Senate, right? Because they said that the Senate is going to stop by and they're going to have a conversation and all of that. And Venestra is reporting the incident, everything that happened. And guess what? She puts all the blame on Saul. She says Saul was a rogue Jedi, didn't expect him to kind of just break out and do his own thing like that. She said it was unfortunate because Saul was a great friend of hers. She didn't see it coming. So you could see that Venestra is still keeping things covered up and hiding the truth of exactly what's happening and being very, very tight about all that stuff. I don't know moving forward how this is going to affect their relationship with the Senate. I guess we could kind of see what happens when we saw the prequels come out and kind of like the relationship they have, the Senate and the Jedi Council, right? So it's very, very interesting there. But she reassures them twice. It's just one person, the act of just one person, and that person is dead and it will not be a threat anymore. And so we also see Venestra sitting down with May, having a little interview, finding out what she knows, and she finds out she doesn't really remember much of anything. So she's like, you know what? You've been through a lot. I just want you to do me a quick favor. I need you to help me find somebody. And what she says is, I want you to help me find a former pupil who went towards evil, who turned evil. And of course, we know she's talking about Chimera at that moment. So again, we are left with like a cliffhanger in that moment. There's several things that leave us hanging. The reveal of Plagueis, this mention here about, I need to find my pupil. What's going to happen with the training of Osha and Chimera? We see Osha back in the planet where the hideout is, where Plagueis is hanging out, apparently. She's looking out into the ocean, standing there alone. Chimera joins her, holds her hand. as she's holding the saber that we saw transform from light to dark. And I don't think this is a romantic gesture. I think this is more of like a reassurance. Remember, Chimera uses touch a lot to kind of reassure and make Osha feel comfortable. So this is more of like, we're going to do this together and we're going to get through this together and big things are to come. And that's basically how we end this storyline, at least for now, with these two people. And then we get another scene at the end where Venestra goes into this room, doors open, and she's like, I need to talk to you, master. And we see the head of freaking Yoda. And I wrote it down in big letters. It's Yoda. Because I wasn't expecting that. That was the one thing that I said I wasn't at all expecting. But we see Yoda pop up. He didn't say a word. It's just Yoda. So we know he is part of this timeline. How old he is, I don't know. Honestly, at this point, I don't care. I just thought it was cool, a nice little Easter egg, but also I hope they're just not doing this for fan service and just giving us, hey, we all know this guy, right? Out of everyone we know, this is the one person that could be around during this time. Here he is, right? So boom. So yeah. So at the end of it all, like I said, it was an interesting show. Definitely gave us more of a point of view from the Sith side of things, or from an outsider's view on the Jedi and the Force. I felt, honestly, this was purposely left so open for a potential season 2 or whatever. I love the dramatic music played during the credits, but I've also felt like as they switched to the chanting music, was this like a troll to the audience because of how much fun they poked at the whole witch chanting moment within the show and all that. But yeah, that is the show. That is the episode in a nutshell. A lot of great things, a lot of interesting things, a lot of questionable things, but at the end of the day, I thought it was quite a decent episode. I was thoroughly entertained. A lot of great wow moments. Also a lot of moments. But I enjoyed it for what it was. And we'll see for the rest of the week how much everyone else is going to be talking about this episode and all that. And I know haters will hate. It is what it is. For the last several days, the hashtag renew the Acolyte has been trending on X. So there appears to be more fans of the show than they are haters. And that's something to always take note of, because that will always be the case no matter what. But boom, there you go. Arnold said he was expecting Yoda to show up. Can you do a vlog and live when you're in Japan? I am planning to. Arnold, that is one of the things I am planning to do. I'm hoping one of the things I can do is go to my usual places I like to visit and kind of give you my point of view of things, because there's a lot of touristy things that people do when they're in Japan, but since I've been there so many times, I have more local haunts, more local things that I like to do and go to. So I'm hoping that I could document that more for you guys. And yeah, I would love to be live when I'm there. So that's definitely something that I'm going to be doing when I'm over there. I wish I did that more before. You know, that's one of my regrets I had. I've been to Japan more than 10 times, and I wish I documented a lot more in video or streaming. So hopefully I can make up for that when I go back next year. Ficon still wanted to know who Khmer really was. Is he really a Sith Lord? And if so, what is his name? Or maybe he's a Knight of Ren. That is exactly one of my problems. And I think I've kind of mentioned this before. There's so many characters that we were introduced to in this show that I would really personally love to know more about. Like Saul. Yes, we learned a lot about Saul as a person, as a character, his personality. But what made him the way he is, right? I wish we knew more of that. Venestra, I don't want to go to the books and learn about her. For the casual fan, give us more about her. Let us learn more about her. Khmer, he's one person I would love to know more too. You know, and there's a lot of speculation that maybe he is a Knight of Ren, right? So if that's the case, well, where's everybody else? You know, where's his Where's his group of people? You know, like if that's true, then the dark side, those people, would a Knight of Ren work very closely with Plagueis? Because I thought the Knights of Ren were an offset of the Sith, right? They don't necessarily want to be Sith, but they do focus on the dark side of things, right? So I don't know how that explanation would be, but if that is a case, I would love them to explain that more. I would love to learn more. And if anything, even let's say we don't get a season 2 of the Acolyte, what if we get a spin-off series, right? I would love to learn more, and maybe we could learn more off of a spin-off. So I don't know, you know. Who trained him to the dark side? I actually don't think it was Plagueis. Yeah, I don't think it was either, honestly. I don't think. I think somehow Chimere met up with Plagueis somehow. They somehow got connected. And maybe Plagueis is in a point where he's like, hey, I need help with this. Maybe you could help me out with this. Hey, do me a solid. If you want to, I'm trying to learn X, Y, and Z, prolong life, create life, clone life. If you want to help me do this, you know, that would be awesome. I don't know. We'll see. Or maybe Plagueis is very close to his master. Who's to say, right? I don't know. Does Plagueis have a normal lightsaber or something different? That's a good question. I actually don't know. I think his saber is somewhat normal. Ficon, do you know the answer to that? I'm very curious what the answer to that is. I guess I could look it up too. Clone Wars for Life saying he's going to get caught up on the Acolyte. See y'all later. Clone Wars for Life, always a pleasure. I hope if you do catch up on the Acolyte, I would love to hear your thoughts about it the next time I see you. Ficon said that Plagueis' saber is different. It's different. Some people say he has a long hilt, and others say it's short. So it's hard to say. Yeah, I've never read the Plagueis book. I'm sure it probably explains that in the book. Let's see. I'm sure Plagueis is probably one of the biggest Google searches today, last night, and today. Let's see. Let's see if there's any imagery. Darth Plagueis. You will forever be known as Darth Plagueis. Yeah, so I'm seeing different renditions of his character. It's hard to tell what's going to be canon, what's going to be in the lore. But I do see a lot of renditions of his the hilt of his saber being very long, like really long. So yeah, so I think it might be hard to say because there hasn't been really that much focus put on him. But maybe moving forward we'll find out more. So that could be like an interesting mystery that can reveal itself the more we get to see what they're going to do with the lore moving forward. Another reminder again, if you're watching live, you're just tuning in, make sure hit that like button. Would greatly appreciate it. Ficon, I think either Corel or Tenburos trained Chimere, and I also think that Chimere has no idea that Plagueis is there and spying on him. Oh, interesting. So you think Plagueis is not? You think Plagueis is hiding and is just spying on them, and not really working in tangent with Chimere? I never even thought of that, but that could also be another possibility too. I also do think Chimere has some sort of ties with the Coven. So it is possible that maybe Mother Coral helped train. Another speculation that we all had was that maybe Mother Coral was still alive, right? That maybe some of the witches were still alive. That could still be true. We don't know, right? So I wonder if that's the case. Because we never really saw her dead and we never really saw her body. So that could be something interesting. Fike said I would prefer a very long hilt actually because it would be so unique. I agree. I agree. Arnold say it would make sense because of his long fingers. Yeah, exactly. See how that kind of like comes into play there. So yeah, that would be interesting. It would also be interesting, and I don't know if this is possible, but if they did something interesting and making it unique, where maybe the hilt is made out of cortosis, right? Could you imagine if you have a saber, especially a Darth, a red saber made out of the same metal that can short circuit other sabers and other crystals? I think that would be amazing, right? Again, I don't know if the technology would allow that to happen, but I don't see why not. There's ways to make it happen. Arnold, what if Plagueis is the father? The father of the father of the kids? No, I don't think that's true. That would be crazy though. That would be crazy. So yeah, so I mean, out of all of this stuff here, it sounds to me like most people, at least those of you hanging out with me, would love to see a season 2, right? And if we do get a season 2, what are some of the things that you would love to see them reveal and go more into? I think Chimere wants an acolyte to help him kill Tenebris, and he becomes the master. But in reality, Plagueis already killed Tenebris, and Chimere don't know that. I think Tenebris. I hope I'm saying his name right too. And by the way, Tenebris, if for those of you who don't know, I believe Tenebris was the master of Plagueis, right? If I'm correct in that. So before Plagueis looked at Chimere's ship, and that makes me think Plagueis wants to kill Chimere now. That, or he's just very much invested in the twins and hoping that he can get the twins to learn more about them. Because again, he's all about the creation of life, the prolonging of life, the dyad and the virgins. He's all about that, right? Especially when he teams up with Palpatine, who I still think that's who we heard on the comms that Vanessa was talking to. So it'll be really interesting to see if they ever explain that too. Arnold, Plagueis on a dragon in the House of Dragons. I think the season would be faster. Oh man, if they introduce some sort of dragon creature in Star Wars, especially on the Sith side, forget it. I don't know. I may have to quit watching if that ever happened. That would be like a little bit too crazy, in my opinion. Lycon said, and Tenebris had 2 apprentices that made him break the rule of 2 in Legends. Tenebris had Darth Plagueis and Darth Venomous, and I think Chimere is Venomous. Oh, you know what? That would actually be very interesting if that's the truth. If that is what is to be revealed. And maybe, in a way, they could kind of play it on where maybe Plagueis has some sort of envy over Venomous, right? Because that, I don't know, for me, that feels like a very Sith thing to do, where there's going to be like envy and kind of like hatred towards this other, because maybe Plagueis wants to be the one. So maybe Plagueis ends up killing both Tenebris and Chimere / maybe Venomous, right? And then somehow he finds his way working with Palpatine. Clones had to come back, not even halfway done with the episode 5, and oh my god, this is amazing. Oh, wait a minute. Right? I think we have a new convert. I don't know. Clone Wars for Life said the show wasn't really for him. But yes, the one thing I will give this show is that the saber fights are probably some of the best fights I've seen in Star Wars. And wait till you get to the final episode, because man, that threw me off. I was like, but if for in a good way, I was just like, man, I was so surprised. You know how good they did this, the choreography and everything, the influence of wuxia. Ah, so good. Or I'm saying Yoda looks old in the scene, so I think Yoda seen too much stuff. Well, you know, Yoda has been around what 800 years or so, or something like that. When he died in Jedi, what did he say? He said, "When 800 years old you become," or something like that, right? So he's been around for a very long time. Clone was saying, "I don't know if I should love this or hate it." What does your feelings tell you? Qui-Gon said Venomous was actually not a Sith Lord. He gave himself the title of Darth, and that is also why I don't think they have revealed Chimere's Sith name, because he don't have one. Oh, I didn't know. Okay, that's interesting. Love it because there's no sand. There you go. That's a brilliant reason to love it. I hate sand. Yoda's first pet was a T-Rex. That's funny. Now that we're talking about the series as a whole, what were some of your favorite moments in the series? Now is also a great time to talk about that too. And I'm going to remove the spoiler. Well, I don't know. Should I leave it up there? Yeah, I'll just leave it up there. Because I think no matter what, at this point, we're just going to talk openly about everything, right? So, Ficon saying, and in the end, Venomous found Plagueis, and they fought right after the death of Tenebrous for who is going to be the Sith Lord. Did Plagueis have ever a love in his life? I don't know. That's a good question. There's a book. It's I think the title is just Plagueis, right? And I think you learn a lot more about Plagueis in that book. I never read it. Ficon just ordered it after last night's episode. So maybe we learn more about Plagueis there. But also keep in mind, that is Legends. So Legends is not necessarily part of canon. But since they basically cherry pick to see what to include in current canon, who's to say? And the reason why I say that is because when they brought in who's that? One of my favorite bad guys in Star Wars from the books. He appeared in Ahsoka. Oh my god, why can't I remember his name? The blue guy. Whew. Can someone help me remind me? Because my brain is mush. What the hell is going on with me today? Thrawn. Yes, sorry. Yeah. When they brought, oh God, how could I forget his name? Again, he's supposedly my favorite, one of my favorites, right? When they brought Thrawn from the books into current canon, they cherry picked only some of his backstory. They didn't really give everything about his backstory. So, you know, you got to have to keep that in mind, that they're kind of recreating the person when they bring it into current canon. Clone Wars is asking, if I was force sensitive, what side would you rather be on, Sith or Jedi? I want to be in the middle. I kind of want to ride the line between both. And I know that's possible, and we've seen that, right? I feel like Luke kind of towed that line a little bit, right? And I think as he lived throughout his life, he continuously kind of rode that line in between. Because at the end of the day, I'm not the kind of person who will always be 100% good. And I'm also not ever going to be truly bad. But if we're going to talk Dungeons and Dragons terms, I could be neutral, right? So I can see myself kind of towing the line in between the two. Revan did the same, right? I think Clone Wars, that's what you're trying to say. Arnold, I could decide while using a loner who uses both sides of the Force. That'll be interesting. Like, if you toe the line between the two, can you have a double-bladed saber that is both blue and red? Or maybe, I guess that's orange, right? Yeah, Windu, in a way, even though we never saw it, but I believe they talked about it more in the books and comics, that he kind of towed that line, right? Ficon said also in the end, Plagueis won, but he did not kill him. He just used him as an experiment. Yeah, Plagueis is kind of like the mad scientist on the Sith side, right? I always found that very interesting about that character. That's what the purple supposedly mean. Oh, when someone toes the line between the two? Bro, no, we are in 2024. They have to be rainbow.
Wow.
Touche, Arnold. Touche. If you'd like to know what happened between Plagueis and Venomous, there's a great stop motion video made by Carl Farelli, Production 17. Oh, really? What did they use for the stop for the characters? Did they use action figures or clay? Or is it animation? Why did Bro make a triangle in her back? Which scene is that? Triangle in her back. Which scene are you talking about, Clone Wars? Oh, Ficon, they use action figures? That's pretty cool. Call Forelli. All right, I may have to check that out. To be fair, it's not the best video, but it explains everything great. I think at the end of the day, as long as it like gives a good explanation about things, then I think that's fine. Yeah, so everyone, according to Ficon, if you want to learn more about Plagueis and Venomous, who we're kind of, at this point, we're kind of speculating that Venomous could be Chimere, right? And there was an apparent fight between the two. There's apparently this nice stop motion video on the YouTube channel called Call Forelli Production 17. Padawan. Oh, the fight with Jeki. Yeah. That was so... It was messed up, but pretty damn smooth and awesome. But yeah, you're right. It did kind of form a triangle, right? Again, another thing I give credit to these guys for this show is that they very much treated it like Game of Thrones. You know, no one is safe. So everyone that you were rooting for, or everyone that you thought was going to be a major part of the show because of the advertising and marketing, boy, were you wrong, right? They definitely played around with people's expectations. And I got to give them credit for that. I got to give them major credit for that. So if we all had a choice here and we all had our say as to what we would love to see in season 2, if there is to be one, what are some of the things that you would love to be revealed or kind of given more attention to, right? I think it's obvious most of us would love to see more about Plagueis. How does he play into this whole thing? Venestra and Chimere, what's the relationship between them two, right? And why now all of a sudden does Venestra want to find him and you know, seek him out? The training between Osha and Chimere, how's that all going to play, right? Who was that mysterious voice that sounded awfully familiar on the comms that Venestra was talking to? You know, is Yoda Venestra's master, or just someone that they go to whenever they need help in the Jedi Council, right? I think those are some of the things that I would love to see them explain and go deeper into in a follow-up season. I was saying, if you have to fight against 4 Siths and you could choose one person as a partner, which person would you choose to fight on your side? I think the person I would choose to fight on my side. That's an interesting question. I think, huh? And I only get to choose one person, huh? See now the question, because the thing that I'm struggling with in trying to think is, would I want to choose another Jedi or would I want to choose somebody else? You know, because there's something very appealing about maybe having someone with like a Boba Fett or a Mandalorian or Mando, because they are trained to fight against Jedi. Oh, Bo-Katan. Maybe I would love to have Bo-Katan with me because she has experience with fighting against Jedi, right? Against users of the Force. And she can be very unpredictable. So I think I would love it would be interesting to team up with a Mandalorian, because Mandalorians are definitely trained to know how to hold their own against Force users. So that could be very interesting. Choose Jar Jar Binks. If I want to die very quickly, yeah. Or if the episode that I'm in where I'm fighting against these Sith is meant to be a comedy, then yes, I will choose Jar Jar Binks. Because there will be a lot of comedy and a lot of hilarity will be coming through that type of episode that I would be part of. Also, once again, if any of you are if any of you are tuning in for the very first time, don't forget, hit that like button. Would really greatly appreciate it. And everyone here would be very happy. Ficon had a bad day. Arnold had a bad day. So let's make their days better by adding likes to the stream and reacting to the stream as well. And if you're having a bad day, I'm sorry to hear that, but let us know about it and let's all have a better evening or day with all of us. Did you know the main Dark Lord was supposed to be Jar Jar? I don't think that's true. I think that was just a rumor. Or that was, if George said that at one point, I'm pretty sure he was just having fun with us when he said that. I don't know if I would take that as face value. But when you speculate it does sound like that would be like a nutty thing to experience, right? George has confirmed it, maybe, but I like to believe it. I mean, George has also said that he thinks of the rebels in episode 4 as the Viet Cong. Now, I don't know if I would believe that. You know, he has George, again, I respect the guy, amazing visionary, but he's like the biggest retcon person of his own properties. He's always trying to change things around. No, I'm not. How dare you say that? I just always had all of these things in my mind. And I choose not to share them with anybody until I'm ready. So, yeah, if you want the truth, Jar Jar Binks was the main Darth Lord in the prequels. And he was supposed to be an apprentice of Palpatine. And they were supposed to turn Anakin together. And Anakin was then eventually going to betray Jar Jar, and all that stuff was going to happen. But yeah, I decided not to do it that way because that's too easy, and I think it will fly over everyone's head. So I decided just to stick to the normal plan, you know. So again, fuck all of y'all, and I'm rich, bitch. Bye. George. Always a pleasure having George on board here. What's going on, GTA crew? I am doing well. Just talking about the last episode of the Acolyte. For now, we'll see, I guess, whether or not we will get a continuation. But I hope you're doing well on your end. GTA, have you been watching the Acolyte at all? And if so, did you have a chance to watch this last episode? And what were your thoughts? Would love to know. Also, again, for anyone tuning in, don't forget, hit that like button. Would greatly, greatly appreciate it. And everyone here would be so happy if you did. And react to the stream too. Arnold, his team, if the scenario was you, a Jedi, up against 4 Sith, and you got to choose one partner, who would your partner be? I said I would choose Bo-Katan because it was nice to have like a Mandalorian along with me because they are trained to fight against Jedi. Arnold saying Mace Windu, which is a great choice too, to have someone who toes the line in between both light and dark. So that would be awesome. Clone Wars for Life, supposedly he was supposed to be Palpatine or something, but because of the reaction to him in episode 1, he decided not to do it, but maybe he was goofing around. But I like to believe it because it would have been hilarious. Yeah, I honestly, I feel like he's just goofing around. Because remember, George got very butthurt with the reaction of Jar Jar in episode 1. And I think that really stuck with him for a very long time. So he loves, in his own way, he loves kind of trolling the fan base, you know? So I'm pretty sure he made it up just to get a reaction out of people. But who knows? Who knows? GTA crew, I'll be honest, no. That's fine. Are you a Star Wars fan at all, GTA crew? What time is it? All right, y'all. I'm going to be up here for like around another 10 minutes. I have to go and do some things afterwards. So again, let me know all your final thoughts about the Acolyte and what you would like to see if there was to be a season 2, or what were some of your favorite moments from the show. Now is a great time to talk about it. Yeah, only the old ones. Okay, so you're like an original Star Wars person, which is perfectly fine. I mean, those are some of the great pieces of Star Wars that we've got, right? So when it comes to all the new stuff, it's, you know, in my opinion, 50-50 at this point. Arnold's going to bed. Arnold, I hope you have a wonderful evening. Clear your mind from everything that happened today, and hopefully tomorrow will be a better day for you. So it's always a new day, a new start. So hopefully you'll have a better day tomorrow, man. Icon saying, I loved Acolyte because of all the new characters. To be fair, I'm getting a bit bored of the same old characters. Oh, no, I agree. The show itself was refreshing because it was so far removed from everything that we are so accustomed to already. That's why when we saw Yoda at the end, I was like, oh, okay, it's Yoda. It's fun. But do we have to find a way to tie him into all of this? But again, if there is a compelling reason why, then I'm all ears. I'm all open for it. Clone Wars saying, wouldn't that have been great though? It would have, if Jar Jar ended up becoming the main Sith Lord instead of Palpatine, right? That would have been so out of nowhere that honestly I would not even know how to react to it right now. I think if I was already confused about the prequels when they came out, I could only imagine how heightened my confusion would be if that was the big reveal. Icon saying, feels like we only get Clone Wars stuff and after the events of Return of the Jedi. No, it's true. It's very, very true. And that's Filoni, right? Because Filoni, that's his era. He loves that stuff. So I get it. But at the same time, I feel like there should be something for everybody, right? So those who really love that era of Star Wars and stuff happening from that, then they have a lot of content for that. Now, For people who've been clamoring for more Old Republic, High Republic stuff, we're getting that now. I want to see more of that. Honestly, I want to see more Old Republic stuff. Let's go back in time. Let's see how things started. And if this is a hint of what we could potentially see, then I kind of like the direction that this could be going moving forward. Yeah. Clone Wars just a Dark Lord walking around saying, Misa Yusa gonna. Misa thinks always too. Misa Master Yusa Apprentice. Misa teach you. Dark side of forces, Misa thinks. Clone Wars is now officially on episode 6. Again, I can't wait to hear your final thoughts when you're done with the whole series. Especially with everything that happened in episode 8. All right, I'm going to remove this spoiler tag from the screen. I think we're safe. We're in safe territory. And if anyone shows up now and some sort of reveal is done, well, sorry. We've been talking about this stuff for almost 2 hours now. Pycon said he feels like rewatching The Mandalorian though after now ended Acolyte. It was a long time ago since I last watched it. That wouldn't be a bad rewatch. Go back to season 1 of The Mandalorian. And then probably watching season 2. That would be like a fun watch. The next piece of Star Wars content that we're going to get is Skeleton Crew, right? So I think that's going to come out in the fall or something like that. I'm curious about it. I'm not like hyped or eagerly anticipating it. I'm just going to be curious as to really what that show is going to be about. Jude Law is going to be in it. It's going to be a bunch of kids. They keep saying that it's more of like a Goonies in Star Wars. So we'll see what happens. But this could be the one bit of content that we're going to get before that. So I don't think we're getting anything in between. If we do, it would be a surprise to me because I'm not aware of anything. But yeah, now may be a good time to kind of revisit, something like The Mandalorian, or maybe even, I dare say, maybe Book of Boba Fett or something. I don't know. They said the holiday seasons, that means it could be September, November, December. Yeah, I think either next week or when D23 comes. Well, no, D23 may be too late. We may end up exactly when Skeleton Crew is coming out, probably by next week when San Diego Comic-Con rolls around. Maybe. Late November. If it's a show that's geared more towards a younger generation, then releasing it closer to like a holiday would make sense because that means that everyone can just join together and watch the show, right? So that would make sense to me also. But I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens. Clone Wars saying they want more of he wants more of the Mandalorian. Yeah, I do too. But I guess the next time we get more Mandalorian will be for the movie, right? Mandalorian Grogu. So, is it true that we're going to get a Dawn of Jedi movie? Dawn of Jedi movie. I haven't heard of that. I'm curious what type of movie that Sean Levy is planning to do. Because I know Sean Levy is supposedly working on a Star Wars movie, right? I think he's looking for a writer for that now because they had one and then that person left recently. We don't know what Taika Waititi's movie is. They still say Patty Jenkins, like Rebel Assault movie is still in the works. So we'll see what happens there. And then of course we have the Ray movie coming out, right? So hopefully Skeleton Crew is not animated. I haven't never enjoyed the animated. Oh no, Skeleton Crew is supposed to be live action. Yeah, they showed pictures of it before in the past with Jude Law in there, and they introduced the whole cast of Skeleton Crew at a previous celebration. So it's definitely going to be live action. But the animated stuff, I really enjoyed, like the Tales of Jedi, the Tales of the Sith. I thought those are some really nice. The Visions series, I thought was very well done. All right, everybody. I'm going to start wrapping things up shortly. So, any last things you want to say, let me know now in the comments. Yeah, the Tales of the Jedi and Empire was good, especially Jedi. Yeah, I love that we got more of a story about Qui-Gon and his relationship with Dooku. I really, really like that. What else? The Ahsoka thing was also interesting. You know, late Clone Wars is great. The final season of Clone Wars was fantastic. I was a big fan of Rebels, so I enjoyed Rebels, so that's why Ahsoka resonated with me a little bit. I think they're getting better with their animation stuff, you know, because in the beginning, when Clone Wars first started, I was so not into it. But I think it got much better later they got. Yeah, Bad Batch I kind of fell off of. I watched the first season and Omega kind of annoyed me as a character, so I kind of stopped watching it. I never watched season 2 and 3. I don't even remember how many seasons they made, but I just never went back to it because that Omega character really annoyed the hell out of me. But people love it, you know. To each their own. People love it. Episode 9 of the first season. Only good thing in my opinion is Hunter and Crosshair. And yeah, the one thing about the Bad Batch that I do like a lot is the chemistry and relationship of all the guys there. I think their relationship is so fascinating to me, and kind of how their their minds and how they've been trained or programmed comes into play a lot in the show, right? So I think that is really well done stuff. Wrecker's too childish. Yeah, I mean, I felt like they needed someone like that, and plus they needed someone to kind of go along with Omega, right? So OSHA watching bro skinny dip is insane. Hey man, Star Wars just got sexy. And you're experiencing it for the first time. Sexy Star Wars. All right, y'all. I think now is a good time for me to close up shop. Ficon saying maybe Plagueis was on the island just to watch Chimere swim. That's what attracted him in the first place. He sensed someone swimming in the pool or in the water. He's like, ooh, who's that? And he's just like, wow, I think I'm going to hang out here for a minute. Wait a minute. This guy has cortosis? Wait a minute. He has a saber? Oh, this guy became more and more interesting to me. And who's this girl? Oh, she's strong in the force too? Oh, I think I found something new here. I think I will stick around and observe for a while. Could you imagine if that's really how it played out? Oh, man. But It's been a pleasure talking about Star Wars as always, and talking about this season or this series of the Acolyte. Again, we don't know if we're getting a season 2. Clone Wars for life, always a pleasure. I'm so curious to see your reaction of the show once you're done with it. So definitely hope to see you in another stream, and you could tell me your thoughts on all of it. He says Plagueis was waiting for her to join. Oh, could you imagine? It's like, oh, he's like sitting behind the scenes. He's like, hey, come on, girl. Jump in the water too. Why don't you both swim together? Oh, this is fun. I want it to happen. Oh, man. Now we're going off the rails. Now we're doing our own fan fiction of the tale of Plagueis, Chimere, and Osha. That in its own can be fan fiction right there. So, Ficon, it's a pleasure talking to you today as well, and any day when we ever talk about Star Wars and all that. I will be back live again on Friday. Twisters is a new movie coming out this week in theaters, so I'll be giving my thoughts and review on that, and then we'll talk about anything that popped in, movie news, pop culture news, and the like and like that. So if you want to hang out again, Friday is the day. So, but again, also big shout out. So once again, Clone Wars for life, big pleasure. Ficon, always a major pleasure. I hope you're feeling better now. And whenever your next game happens, I hope it's a better one. But I do hope your finger heals up soon too. Sorry again, you had a bad day today, but tomorrow is a new day, and hopefully it will be better for you. Big shout out to the GTA crew. Arnold, major shout out as well there. Scorched from earlier today. Kevin Davis, always a pleasure having them join in on the streams. Nikhil can go suck a bag for being stupid earlier. Just wanted to say that. And to everyone else who has joined in on the stream there. Again, one last reminder, please hit that like button before we head on out for the rest of the day. And until next time, let's hit the Acolyte music. It's going to be a while since we talk about Star Wars again, but that doesn't mean we'll never talk about Star Wars. So every Wednesday moving forward, we'll find something to talk about. Maybe we'll talk about comic book movie news, all those things. We'll see. We'll see. But looking forward to catching up and hanging out with all of you again next time. So until then, stay cool, stay classy, stay safe. Catch you all next time. I would love to get Bad Batch music, but that's all copyrighted stuff. So again, I'm so limited. I wish I could. But I'll catch all you guys next time, y'all.